to this Death is for the Dying Epitaph, a mini episode of the podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Richmond, and joining me, as always, today is the podcast producer, Marco Burlow. Hey, Marco.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for this particular epitaph because I get to interview you.
Ah, I'm on the hot spot today.
Exactly. Not,
I
it's no
don't know what the
longer,
questions are.
it's no longer the Spanish Inquisition. This is the Canadian Inquisition. That's what today is. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready as I'm
Excellent.
gonna be.
Okay. So this particular episode that we're going to be talking about is called the time in between or the in between time. And it's effectively a time where, we're waiting for something to happen essentially. But can you just basically tell or describe to folks what the in-between time is for you?
Yeah, so it's for me, it's very much that time where like I know my mom is dying. I don't know when she is dying. Certainly the first year and a half, first 2 years where this was happening and we were like, this is really something. Um, she was going downhill real fast. But now it's just this place where mom's not really there. She can't take care of herself. Her personality hasn't changed, which is good, but you can't hold a conversation with her. She's nowhere near, you know, as competent as she was. She has her moments of lucidity, but her reality is a little bit hazy, I guess. And so as someone who loves her, it's hard because you're seeing someone you love not be able to live a life. You know that they're dying. You know that they are going to die soon. You know it's not going to get any better. There isn't going to be a miracle cure. It's only downhill from here. But you don't know how fast downhill you're going. She could still be around for 10 years. She could die
Wow.
tomorrow. We just don't know. And I've settled into it.
How long did it take you to settle into that?
It took a while. I would say 2 years. The first, I mean, as I said, the first 2 years, there were a lot, or year and a half, there was a lot of changes. She was able to walk, and then more and more she became afraid of falling. She was able to get to the bathroom, but more and more she couldn't. She was able to get into the little portable thing I forget what they call it, portable
Um,
toilet thing,
the ones that
commode.
like commodes. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
She could get it to there, then she couldn't. She was scared all the time. She was so much anxiety. She was always afraid of falling. She, you know, started hallucinating. Maybe not hallucinating, but definitely like definite outside of she was talking about going to New York. She had been to New York. So I guess it was hallucinating. She said she'd been to New York yesterday and she was so exhausted from it. Hired Kathy to preparing preparing us and her for death. Got her in hospice, so they took her off all of the meds she was on, and she got better. Maybe not better. She stopped hallucinating. She still can't walk. She still can't get to the commode or support herself at all. Her anxiety's not there, but we're also completely given up on getting her out of bed.
that's good though.
So, yeah. Um, And so when it was just like it would plateau and then there'd be a sudden change. And then she'd plateau and then be a sudden change. And you can't get your footing when that's happening because you're like, okay, this is the new normal. Oh, wait, nope, nope. No, okay, no, no, this is the new normal. Oh, nope, nope, nope. Now, our new normal has been, you know, a year and a half now where she's been stable. We haven't seen any particularly negative changes. And so that's helped me get used to it. But it really took, first of all, you have to, and the way I had to think about it was you have to submit to the process. You have no power. And that's a hard mindset to have.
Hmm.
You have no power and you can't plan.
Hmm.
And that was a really hard mindset change to just be like, I am accepting that my life can everything can get dropped in a second because I just don't know. I can't like not plan my life. For a while there, I was like, I can't leave because she's gonna die at any moment.
Right.
Um, but you can't do that for years and years and years. You have to live your life.
Right.
But you also have to accept that stuff could happen when you're gone and you don't have any control over it.
That is so true. That is so true. The way that you describe it, I think you actually mentioned it in the episode as well, where it's this stair stepping, like when the plateau, then a change, and then a plateau, and then a change. In a way, it's almost like you're falling down these stairs blindfolded and hitting a plateau and being like, oh, okay, now we're at this new level. And then you fall down again, and you're constantly having to evolve and adjust as circumstances change around her.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you feel more prepared now for her passing that now that you've had this amount of time to kind of be with her and maybe take care of her in person?
I do. I feel the thing with dementia is that you do lose the person. She's not my mom. I mean, she is, but she isn't. And so you do go through a grieving process. You go through a grieving process, and I think also, but also a healing process. You can resolve any tensions, or at least they may not be able to help you with resolving things, but you can come to peace with, you can be at peace with them yourself. So I've gotten there. I'm not sure if my dad's there. He's
Hmm.
he's sort of been grieving the entire time. He hasn't gotten to the peaceful part of it. So now going and visiting her isn't a stress to me. I know what to expect. I know, she can't have a conversation with me. I don't go there expecting her to have a conversation with me. I go there and I do the crossword puzzle, or I putz about on the internet. Today I looked up recipes for potato soup,
Ooh.
which I'm going to make when we're done with this. uh, but he's still searching for something. He hasn't accepted this new reality. And so for him, visiting is a real mental
Sure.
stress. Yeah. Yeah, it's a real mental chore. He was going every day and then he sort of dropped it down and then we dropped it down. So now I go twice a week and he goes twice a week. Because visiting, it's it's not an interesting thing to do. Um, so it's not like something I'm like, "Oh yeah, I get to go see my mom today," because but it doesn't it's not it's more of just kind of like a time suck for me, whereas him it's still really painful.
Have you had conversations with your dad about it? Have you tried to use some of the techniques and resources to make this, or maybe help expedite him getting towards that peaceful process or that peaceful state of mind?
I've tried, but I think one of the things that we'll see in the upcoming episode when we're talking to Seth, he talks about walking beside people as they go through this journey, and that's all you can do. I can't I can't make my dad's grieving process any better. He was her caretaker for a good while, and he didn't have it in him. Like he's 80, he was 80 when he was doing this, and he was exhausted. It was exhausting. Physically
Hmm.
taking care of somebody is so much work. And at the beginning, she felt the urge to go pee like every 15 minutes,
Gosh.
and she couldn't do it by herself. So and she'd be waking up in the night, and so he wasn't getting sleep. And like he wasn't paying attention to his own like physical needs, and she wouldn't want him to be gone from the house for more than 15 minutes, or she would like start crying. And so he was at the breaking point. Um and we she kept falling. He wouldn't be able to get her up. They'd have to call the fire department. Fire department's only going to come out so many times for a fall before they're
Hmm.
like, we're going to hospitalize you. And so at that point in time, we kind of had to make the choice of moving her into the care home. And I will say, I know there's a lot of like, oh, care homes are terrible places, and that's where you send your loved ones to die, and all of that. And I'm not going to say that there aren't some bad stuff that happens. In our case, it's an adult family care home. There's 2 to 3 patients at any point in time. The family like lives in the same building. So, and both the husband and the wife are qualified nurses. And honestly, I think my dad was at the, I wouldn't say like it wouldn't be elder abuse, but he could not take care of her.
Hmm.
And he was losing his temper and making things worse. And I do think people need to take that into consideration, and that yeah, it's lovely if you can take care of somebody, but you also have to remember that you have a lot of emotional baggage and this whole other relationship with them that is going to get in the way of you being a professional caretaker for them, and
Right.
you being the best caretaker for them.
Right.
There is real value in having somebody who has a medical background, who is dispassionate, who kind. You want somebody who's kind, but who doesn't have that emotional history.
And who has the requisite training to do the job correctly.
Yes, and connect, and the equipment, the beds, the Hoyer, I think it's called, that lifts her out of the bed so that she can have a shower. Um, all of that dad was trying to do by himself 24 hours a day, and he was close to snapping. Um, and so when we moved her, he spent half a year just physically recovering from that ordeal. And then he kind of had the delusion and that living alone was something that he could do and that wasn't going to be challenging for him. He's like, I've spent time alone. I've traveled on my own. Gone camping by myself. But he had never lived alone. He moved directly from his parents into living with my mom.
Oh, wow. Didn't know
And
that.
so he was suddenly didn't have anybody to talk to. He suddenly didn't have any sort of relationship like there that's steady presence. He went from having like they were married for 45 years,
Wow.
I would
Yeah.
say, before he had to do this, and suddenly she's not there and he's alone. And even as someone, like when I first moved into a place by myself, you kind of have to get used to it. I would say it's a skill to live by yourself. It's just it was a lot thrown at him, and he has his own health complaints. As I said, he's 82 now. He has arthritis in the knees, and he's getting less mobile. So it's a lot of stuff that he has to process. And he is already kind of set behind it, as I sort of talked about in the very first season. He had, a lot of childhood abuse, a lot of childhood trauma.
Hmm.
So he doesn't even necessarily have the resources to cope with all of this.
I think there's a lot of people that find themselves in that situation where they have to be the caretaker. And some people just don't have the skills for it, whether it is the lack of you know, training itself, or maybe they just, like you said, they bring their emotional baggage into the situation. And so they may have less patience with somebody than maybe someone who's like a hospice nurse or something like that. And it's a lot for somebody to take on. I mean, if you think about it, if you listen to the way that Mara has been when we interviewed her,
It is her life.
that is her life exactly. And she is fighting every single day. She is always on. And like, I don't know if people noticed it in the episodes themselves, but there's a certain, energy to her that she's just constantly running really, really high, revving really, really high because she has to be up for 24 hours so that she makes sure that, her husband doesn't pass away.
Yeah.
And to put that kind of mental and physical burden on anybody, I can totally understand how they would want to just be like, I can't do it. But a lot of times it's sheer stubbornness, maybe out of a sense of fidelity that they have to take care of this person because that's the promise that they made 45 years ago, 50 years ago when they stood at the altar together.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he's now on the road to recovery, getting better, and that both of them are in a better situation now. But let's talk a little bit more about you specifically. What do you feel that you had to give up in order to take care of your mom?
I had to give up all illusion of control. That was that's a hard one. Um, and I really had to like lean into it. I, I have to give up time. I was, complaining, well, like I never haven't made friends in Seattle, sort of independent of my family because I'm taking my dad to the grocery store or I'm visiting mom. And I'm not, the thing is, I'm not a full-time caretaker. I'm just, you know, the side support at the moment.
Hmm.
And it's energy and time. And I don't have kids that I have to worry about. They're not, physically in my home, either my mom or my dad. My dad is starting to get to the point where he's going to need some more caretaking. I, I don't work a particularly stressful job. And I'm not alone. Like my sisters are further away, but they're always the backup and they're always, going to step in and help out. So like when my dad uh had a dizzy spell and we couldn't rule out stroke, I was the first person there, but my sister came as soon as she could. So I know that there are people out there who are I don't know. How would you do this when you have somebody who's living in your home and you're like the main caretaker and you're taking care of kids and you have a job? Like
No idea.
that would just drain me completely. I would go insane.
I've come to realize that the human body is capable of way more than anything we could even possibly conceive of. And, you know, there are a lot of times where we're put in situations in our life where those limits are tested.
Yeah.
And it, a lot of folks say that, there are different seasons in your life, and this is just one of those seasons where you're constantly under stress. You're constantly having to take care of other folks at the sacrifice of your own,
Yeah.
well-being. And but seasons change.
Yeah,
And you
there's
know,
that. But I also it's such a struggle to get through this period. There's so much. How do you find a good place if you're going to put somebody into a care home, and then you have to pay completely for it for two
Mm.
years, or at least in many instances. So my dad had to pay $6,000 a month for mom to move into this care home. Now he had the savings for that. Um, but and then then we got her on Medicaid, but it's expensive.
Oh
It's
yeah.
incredibly expensive.
Uh-huh.
And it's just, it's a lot. And I feel like there's a real lack of systematic support.
Oh yeah. That's
So
true.
like, as I said, we had the money that we could spend on my mom's care. Like I was able to move up here. You didn't have those resources, your loved one's going to die sooner. And that's 100%.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
she's not going to be able to clean their diapers as regularly as you should, and they're going to get a UTI and, you know,
Then
not
pass
get
away.
the help and pass away from it.
Yeah. That's the other thing I think we should probably bring light to is the fact that a lot of times we get put in these situations or people get put in these situations because of financial distress. They just can't afford the care
Yeah.
and they have
And then
to,
and that's when you end up in those situations where you're in, a nursing home that isn't great.
right.
And maybe you're not getting the attention, you're not getting the attention that you need. It's like it's really it this whole thing has opened my eyes to like we don't talk about it. We don't really plan for it. And it's hard to plan for. I'm also going to say like, you could be like, "Oh, I'm going to go to this nursing home," but you don't know when you're going to the nursing home. And most people don't want to go and visit a nursing home or, assisted living facilities, because you don't want to plan for it. But then on the other hand, when you have to do it, that doesn't give you enough time to really do the research. And there are some systems in place, but you do have to do the searching and the advocating for yourself. And again, if you don't have the time or money, stuff stuff can get bad.
Yeah. Real fast. Last question I have for you. When the in-between time is over,
Yes.
what do you want to do?
I want to buy a house and have a garden and just enjoy life. I also want to write a book about this experience. I There's a couple of books out there, but they're usually specifically about Alzheimer's, experiencing Alzheimer's, and my mom does not have Alzheimer's. But there's not a lot of books about this particular experience where you're watching your parents slowly die. Which is odd
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people who experience it.
For the vast majority of us do.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about doing that as well.
Well, you have a lot of material to draw off of. You can use this podcast as, the source material, I guess. So
And
stay
clearly,
tuned.
I have some opinions.
So for our audience friends out there, stay tuned. That book is coming sometime in the future, perhaps,
Yeah.
maybe. We'll see. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for opening up and sharing with me and our audience all of the things that you have been going through. And for all of you out there, hopefully you have found this epitaph enjoyable. So please, as always, join in on the conversation. Let us know what you think. Would you like more conversations like this where Rebecca and I kind of open up about our personal struggles and stuff like that? Whatever it is, please let us know. Send us an email at lifeisforthelivingpodcast@gmail.com, or you could reach us on all the socials at Life is for the L on Twitter, Instagram, and also YouTube as well. I found out that you have to use at Life is for the L on YouTube to find our channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, Rebecca. Thank you so much. We'll see you
Thank you.
later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.